Imagine feeling exactly 25 years old, right up until the moment you try to stand up from a sofa, and your spine just sounds like popping bubble wrap.
Oh, yeah. That is a vividly painful image.
Right. It really is. So, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are looking at this bizarre, honestly hilarious psychological phenomenon called subjective age. And we're doing it through the lens of a couple, Mandy and Raymond.
Yes, the Canal Boat couple.
Exactly. They live on a canal boat, and they are basically actively fighting a losing battle against time, aggressive wildlife, and, well, their own memory.
It's just a fantastic source text because it really highlights a striking contrast.
Oh, completely.
On one side, you have this idealized narrative of alternative living, right? The tranquility of the water, stepping away from the modern rat race, feeling like you have suspended your youth.
Yeah, that sort of cottagecore dream everyone wants right now.
Exactly. But the source material we're looking at today, this transcript of their everyday banter, it just aggressively dismantles that narrative. It replaces the serene with the utterly chaotic.
Okay, let's unpack this, because reading their dynamic feels so much less like one of those idyllic travel blogs and way more like an unscripted study in human endurance.
It really is an endurance test.
Yeah, it is. And the catalyst for this entire exploration is this moment that I think almost everyone dreads on some level. So Mandy, who is nearly 50 and living this very gritty hands-on lifestyle, she has this casual run-in on the street with an old school friend.
Which is such a powerful trigger. That kind of encounter acts as a temporal anchor.
A temporal anchor. What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, when we go about our daily routines, especially in isolated environments like a canal boat, we just aren't constantly measuring our chronological age. The brain kind of blurs the passage of time.
Oh, sure. You're just living day to day.
Right. But then, boom, a face from your adolescence appears, and it abruptly forces your internal timeline to reconcile with objective reality.
And Mandy's internal timeline was shockingly misaligned. I mean, she notes in the text that in her head, she felt as though she left school about 10 years ago.
10 years.
Just 10 years. But the schoolmate looks at her and casually drops the fact there's actually been 35 years.
Yeah, that is a heavy reality check.
I mean, she is nearly 50,
Wow.
but operating on the internal assumption that she is in her mid-20s. The math there is just wild. That is a 25-year blind spot.
And what's fascinating here is that it triggers a profound cognitive dissonance. She even mentions that she nearly called him a liar.
I love that part. Just
Yeah.
straight up, you're lying.
Right, and that isn't just an exaggeration for comedic effect. It is a literal defensive reflex. Her brain is actively rejecting the data because accepting it requires, well, a complete recalibration of her identity.
I look at that huge discrepancy, that 25-year gap, and I compare her internal clock to a computer operating system.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, it's like for 2.5 decades, every single time the biological or chronological system update notification popped up on her screen, she just aggressively clicked, "Remind me tomorrow."
Just swiping it away over and over.
Exactly. But I really struggle to understand how a gap that massive forms. Is this just active denial? Or is there some functional mechanism in the brain that actually allows us to lose track of a literal quarter century?
It's highly functional, actually, and it's heavily documented in psychology. It relates directly to this concept of subjective age, which is just the discrepancy between how old you are and how old you feel.
Right, because nobody ever feels their actual age.
Exactly. Research consistently shows that after we pass our mid-20s, our subjective age basically freezes, or at least it significantly slows down compared to our chronological age.
But I have to challenge that specific anchor point. I mean, why 25?
It's a very specific time in development.
But the mid-20s are usually characterized by immense instability. Career anxiety, financial panic, relationship turmoil. Why would the human brain actively choose to freeze frame an era of such high stress and carry it forward as the baseline identity?
Well, because that instability is also the crucible where your final adult self is forged.
Okay, so it's like the trial by fire.
Precisely. Neurologically speaking, the prefrontal cortex, which is the area of the brain responsible for complex planning and personality expression, it typically finishes developing around age 25.
Ah, so the hardware is finally fully installed.
Yes. Despite the external stress you mentioned, internally, this is the moment you are fully cooked. It's the peak of our physical vitality, and it's the exact moment our core aesthetic, musical, and social tastes solidify.
So the brain basically just takes a snapshot of that.
Right. It takes a snapshot of this fully formed self and uses it as the default avatar for the rest of our lives.
Wow. That makes the encounter with the schoolmate so much more brutal. The friend wasn't just updating her age, he was basically pointing out that her default avatar is essentially a historical artifact.
It is a walking time capsule.
It totally explains her immediate reaction. She doesn't just accept the math and move on. She instantly retreats into this highly specific cultural defense mechanism, just listing off all the anchors of her mental era.
Yeah, she firmly roots her identity in the 1990s.
Oh, deeply in the 90s.
The text notes her expectations so clearly, like Oasis should be #1 on the charts, Kurt Cobain should still be alive, and her primary daily concern should be whether her Doc Martens match her jeans.
When you look at those specific touchstones, they aren't just random pop culture references, right? They are heavily loaded symbols of a very specific youth culture.
Grunge, Britpop, the whole rebellion aesthetic.
Yeah. But Raymond, her partner, he just looks at this and bluntly tells her she still dresses like it's the 90s. He's essentially accusing her of being stuck in the past.
He is definitely teasing her about it.
He is, but I actually disagree with Raymond's interpretation here. I mean, I really don't think dressing in 90s grunge at age 50 is necessarily a refusal to grow up.
You don't think so?
No, because fashion is cyclical. Mandy retorts that it's vintage, and there's a strong argument that she has just stubbornly outlasted the trend cycle to become fashionable all over again.
Well, you can certainly argue the cyclical nature of fashion, sure. But we really have to look at the psychological utility of that clothing for Mandy.
You mean like what the clothes actually do for her mentally?
Exactly. Labeling something vintage isn't just an aesthetic choice in this context. It's a linguistic trick.
Oh, that's interesting. A linguistic trick to do what?
It legitimizes her refusal to let her core identity age. By lacing up the Doc Martens, she is physically inhabiting the 1990s.
So it's basically armor.
Exactly. It is physical armor against chronological time. The boots, the music, they are talismans.
Yeah, holding the present at bay.
Right. When she references Kurt Cobain, she's referencing a figure who is literally frozen in time, eternally young in the cultural consciousness.
Oh, wow, I didn't even think about it like that.
Yeah, it reinforces her own suspended animation. It's a very common coping mechanism when we face the gap between our internal software and our external reality.
And it's a mechanism that forces you to examine your own blind spots, honestly. I mean, I have to ask you, the listener, when you think about your own internal timeline, what are the talismans you use to deflect the passing decades?
Everyone has something.
Everyone does. We all have an arrow we secretly believe is still the present. Like, what is your Doc Martens and jeans equivalent? But the thing is, that psychological armor, whether it's vintage boots or just a really stubborn music preference, it only works until the physical reality of the body completely overrides it.
Because you simply cannot outthink biology.
You really can't. And that biological reality crashes into Mandy's narrative with just devastating clarity. The transition she makes in the text is so stark.
It's an abrupt shift, yeah.
It is. She goes from fiercely defending her 25-year-old internal identity to immediately complaining that her knees make noises when she stands up.
The symphony of aging joints.
Yes, the auditory portrayal of the aging body. And Raymond, bless him, he doesn't let her off the hook at all. He ruthlessly adds that her back sounds like someone stepping on bubble wrap.
That phrasing is just incredible.
I really want to linger on the visceral nature of that description, because stepping on bubble wrap is genius. It's not just a single, dull ache.
No, it's plural. Lots of pops.
Exactly. It's a percussive, cascading failure of cartilage and joints. When you get off a low piece of furniture on a damp canal boat at nearly 50, it is a loud, undeniable broadcast of your chronological age.
And that contrast right there is the core of the human experience.
How so?
Well, you have this internal avatar worrying about 90s fashion, but it's operating a skeletal structure that literally sounds like shipping materials being crushed.
It's tragic and hilarious all at once.
It is. But rather than just settling for the physical comedy of the situation, Mandy pivots to a surprisingly profound observation.
She does. She notes that when she was young, 50 sounded ancient, like totally over the hill.
Yeah.
But now that she is nearly 50, she feels like she has only just started figuring life out.
And this is the ultimate paradox of adulthood. It shatters a very specific societal illusion that we all kind of buy into.
The illusion that grown-ups actually know what they're doing.
Yeah, precisely. We build entire cultures on the premise that age correlates directly with mastery. Children are taught to defer to adults because adults ostensibly possess this completed map of how the world works.
Right, like they have the secret manual.
Yeah. But Mandy's admission here exposes the imposter syndrome of middle age.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. Imposter syndrome of middle age.
Because the emotional and intellectual self remains in this state of perpetual bewilderment, even as the physical vessel starts to break down.
I think we all assume that by 50, some switch is going to flip. You expect to suddenly possess this quiet, unshakable competence.
You think you'll finally feel like a real adult.
Right. You'll understand interest rates without Googling them. You'll never buy the wrong size garbage bags at the store, and you'll have achieved total emotional equilibrium.
It's a nice fantasy.
It is. But if Mandy, who, as we'll see later, is a woman with immense life experience, if she feels like an absolute novice, it implies that the finish line of adulthood doesn't actually exist. We are all just improvising.
We are entirely improvising. And recognizing that, honestly, is incredibly liberating.
Because it takes the pressure off.
Exactly. It relieves the pressure of having to pretend you possess that mythical competence. However, if we connect this to the bigger picture of the text, it raises a really interesting structural question.
What's that?
Well, if she feels she's only just figuring life out, we have to examine what she is actually spending her time doing, because her physical environment is not exactly conducive to quiet philosophical reflection.
Oh, not at all.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the absolute demolition of the alternative lifestyle myth.
Yes, the Canal Boat reality check.
Because, look, if you scroll through any social media feed today, the narrative around living on a boat or in a van is heavily, heavily curated.
It's always golden hour lighting.
Always. It's sold as cottagecore on the water. The aesthetic promises deep peace, off-the-grid independence, and mornings spent sipping artisanal coffee while effortlessly gliding past weeping willows.
It's marketed as the ultimate escape from urban stress.
Right. And I get it. The modern craving for that kind of escapism is intense.
Oh, absolutely. We are digitally fatigued. So the idea of a visceral, analog life on the water seems like a miracle cure for modern anxiety.
But Mandy's reality check is entirely devoid of that romance. I mean, she reduces the so-called peace and tranquility of boat life to just this barrage of frantic commands.
The list she gives is so stressful.
It's chaotic. She's yelling, "Duck, mind the bridge. Where's the windlass? Have you emptied the toilet? Why is there a shopping trolley in the canal?"
I love that list.
There is zero tranquility in that list. It sounds like an extreme obstacle course crossed with a plumbing emergency.
Let's actually analyze the specific infrastructure she's dealing with here, because it completely strips away that digital era fantasy.
Yeah, let's get into the mechanics of it.
A canal network is not a natural river. It is a piece of 18th and 19th century industrial infrastructure.
Right, it was built for moving coal, not for yoga retreats.
Exactly. So when she shouts, "Mind the bridge," she is managing a multi-ton steel vessel, navigating narrow, solid stone archways that were built for horse-drawn barges centuries ago.
So the margins for error are incredibly slim.
Very slim. A momentary lapse in concentration doesn't just mean a scratched bumper. It means severe structural damage to the boat or serious physical injury to themselves.
And the physical labor involved is just relentless. She mentions the windlass.
Yeah.
Now, for context, for anyone who hasn't been on a canal, a windlass is this heavy, L-shaped metal crank.
It's a serious piece of hardware.
It really is. You have to physically carry it off the boat, walk up to these massive, waterlogged wooden lock gates, and manually crank the heavy paddles open and shut.
Against the immense pressure of thousands of gallons of water.
Exactly. It is exhausting, repetitive, historical labor. You aren't escaping the rat race. You are literally just trading digital stress for 19th century manual labor.
And you are doing all of this while managing your own micro-municipality.
Micro-municipality. I like that.
Well, it's true. The mention of emptying the toilet is crucial here. When you detach from society's grid, you don't magically escape responsibility. You just absorb it directly.
Right. There's no city sewer line attached to your hull.
No. You become your own sanitation department, your own water treatment facility, and your own power grid. The romanticism evaporates very quickly when you are hauling a heavy chemical toilet down a muddy two-path in the pouring rain.
Oh, yeah. That is the exact opposite of cottagecore. But for me, the absolute peak of this environmental chaos is the shopping trolley in the canal.
It's such a striking image.
It is. It's a very specific, very British piece of visual comedy, but it also carries a lot of weight. It's not just a physical hazard for the boat. It is a monument to the inescapability of modern life.
That's a great way to view it.
Right, because you buy a boat to escape the city, to immerse yourself in nature, and you literally end up tangling your propeller in the rusted, submerged remains of urban consumerism.
It perfectly illustrates the friction between the ideal and the reality. The canal is meant to be this natural refuge, but historically and practically, it acts as a sink for urban decay.
It just collects the city's trash.
Exactly. The trolley is an intrusion of the exact world Mandy and Raymond are trying to float away from.
Which makes the fact that she has to navigate this entire obstacle course with Raymond so much more volatile.
The Raymond factor.
The Raymond factor. The physical toll of cranking locks, dodging submerged trolleys, and hauling sanitation tanks explains exactly why her patience is so paper thin when she actually... It's hilarious. He nearly sinks them in a lock. He loses his sunglasses every single day. He ends up in the doghouse over an argument about curtains, and my absolute favorite, he actively argues with swans.
Arguing with a swan is a choice.
It is, but I actually want to defend Raymond regarding the swan because I think it reveals something way deeper about the psychological toll of this lifestyle.
You're going to defend a grown man arguing with a water bird. I am very curious to hear this.
Hear me out. Swans are deeply territorial, highly aggressive creatures, right?
They can be, yes.
So if you are standing on the back of a boat trying to steer this multi-ton piece of steel and a massive bird just squares up to you, hissing and flapping its wings, your adrenaline spikes. And Raymond's defense to Mandy is simply, the swan started it. Now, a fully regulated, calm adult would just ignore the bird.
One would hope.
But Raymond is likely already stressed from the low stone bridges, the heavy locks, and the shopping trolleys. He engages with the swan because he is experiencing severe territorial displacement.
Territorial displacement.
Yeah. The swan represents the overall hostility of the environment. And Raymond finally has a target he can yell back at. He can't yell at a rusted shopping trolley, but he can yell at a bird.
Okay, that is a very generous interpretation of a man shouting at poultry.
Thank you. I try.
But psychologically, you aren't wrong. It's displaced frustration. He can't argue with 18th century lock gates, so he projects his environmental exhaustion onto the wildlife.
Exactly.
But the issue is that this external frustration inevitably bleeds into their internal space. Which brings us to the infamous curtain argument.
Right. Being banished to the doghouse over curtains. I mean, on a standard canal boat, the living space is basically a steel tube, roughly 7 feet wide and maybe 50 feet long.
It's incredibly tight quarters.
Yeah. There is no second floor. There is no garage or basement to retreat to when you're mad. The doghouse he sleeps in is likely just a cramped bench a few feet away from the main bed.
And those space constraints act as an extreme magnifying glass for trivial friction.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
Well, think about it. In a suburban house, an argument about how the curtains are drawn dissipates because the parties can physically separate into different rooms.
You just go upstairs.
But on a boat, the curtains are practically structural. They are your only barrier against the general public walking along the towpath just inches from your window.
Oh, right. People are walking their dogs right past your living room.
Exactly. When physical space shrinks to that extreme, the psychological weight of every single object and every habit is amplified tenfold.
Which makes their communication style so absolutely vital for their survival. My favorite interaction in the entire text is the exchange over the lost sunglasses.
Oh, the ellipsis.
Yes. Mandy claims he loses everything. Raymond aggressively denies it. So Mandy simply asks, where are your sunglasses? And the text just provides an ellipsis.
Just ... It is a masterclass in narrative efficiency.
It really is.
Because it conveys total, crushing defeat without a single word.
You can vividly picture it. It's the silence of a man frantically patting down his pockets, scanning a 300-square-foot cabin, and realizing he is fundamentally indefensible.
And Mandy doesn't even gloat.
No, she just hits him with a simple, exactly. It shows that this isn't a new argument. This is a well-worn groove in their relationship. They have choreographed this exact dispute hundreds of times.
But we have to look at the resolution of this tension because it's very telling. After detailing his incompetence, the near sinkings, and the arguments with wildlife, she concludes that while it's absolute chaos, she wouldn't swap the lifestyle.
Right, she loves it.
But then she adds a crucial caveat. She says, well, maybe I'd swap Raymond occasionally.
And when he protests, she amends it too. Only kidding, mostly.
That mostly is the ultimate safety valve of a long-term relationship.
It really does a lot of heavy lifting there.
It does. It acknowledges the sheer exasperation of living with another human being's flaws in a confined space, but it wraps that exasperation in deep, enduring affection.
Yeah, it's an admission that you actively choose the specific chaos that your partner brings. Even if you, fantasize about a quieter life when they lose their sunglasses for the 5th time in a single week.
It requires a monumental baseline of patience to live like that.
It really does. And for a while I was reading this, I genuinely couldn't figure out where Mandy drew that patience from. I mean, how does a person tolerate the bubble wrap back, the heavy manual labor, the chemical toilets, and a partner who fights swans without completely losing their mind?
It seems impossible.
But then she casually drops her life resume into the conversation, and it completely recontextualizes everything we've learned about her up to that point.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the reveal of her background completely changes the scale of the narrative.
Oh, 100%. She isn't just a woman trying out a quirky lifestyle for a few months. She's a woman who has raised 6 children, has grandchildren, and works in prisons.
That combination is staggering.
It blew my mind. Let's really break down the cognitive load of that resume. First, raising 6 children. That is an exercise in extreme logistical management and constant high-stakes conflict resolution.
Just the sheer noise level alone.
Right. You are managing multiple competing needs, limited resources, and intense emotional volatility for decades.
And then you compound that intense domestic experience with her professional life.
The prison system.
Right. Working in a prison system, regardless of her specific role, means operating daily in an environment defined by hypervigilance, institutional rigidity, and the constant underlying threat of chaos or violence.
It means her tolerance for chaos is artificially, almost superhumanly high.
She's essentially bulletproof.
Exactly. When you spend your day managing the psychological pressure cooker of a prison block and your past managing the absolute anarchy of 6 children, a hissing swan on a canal is basically a vacation.
It's light entertainment for her.
Truly. Raymond losing his sunglasses is just a rounding error in her daily stress quota. She is unflappable because she was forged in environments that demand absolute, unbreakable emotional regulation.
It also completely frames her philosophy on minimalism, which is the final major theme we see in the text.
Yeah, she states that living on a boat teaches you that you don't need half the stuff you thought you did.
Which, coming from someone who raised 6 kids, is a massive statement.
Oh, it's huge. Think about the sheer volume of physical infrastructure required for a family that size. The massive house, the piles of clothes, the endless plastic toys, the giant vehicle.
It's a mountain of material goods.
To transition from that peak accumulation to living in a 50-foot steel tube requires a ruthless shedding of physical and emotional baggage.
It really does. Minimalism is often marketed today as a pure aesthetic choice, right? Like white walls, empty kitchen counters, one carefully placed potted plant.
Very sterile, yeah.
But for Mandy, minimalism isn't an aesthetic. It's a brutal, necessary survival mechanism. You physically cannot fit the artifacts of a massive past into the constrained reality of the present on a boat.
So you are forced to evaluate every single object by its immediate utility.
Exactly. If it doesn't serve a clear purpose, it goes overboard. Metaphorically speaking.
And her conclusion on what is actually necessary is so brilliantly distilled. I mean, she strips away half her worldly possessions and decides the only true non-negotiables are coffee and wine.
And Raymond enthusiastically agrees on the wine part.
Of course he does. But it's funny, it's a humorous reduction, but it's also deeply functional.
How so?
Well, think about it. Coffee provides the necessary stimulant to crank the heavy windlass,
Right.
haul the toilet down the towpath, and deal with the physical demands of that 19th century infrastructure.
Fair point.
And wine provides the chemical depressant needed to tolerate the cramped quarters, the bubble wrap back, and a partner who refuses to admit he lost his sunglasses again. They aren't just beverages. They are the essential biochemical tools required to sustain this lifestyle.
That is a very practical, if slightly cynical, way to look at it. But it brings us full circle to how we manage the discrepancy between our internal desires and our external reality.
Yeah, when you strip away the physical space, the excess possessions, and all the societal expectations of what it means to be nearly 50, you are left with the absolute raw mechanics of living.
Just the bare bones of existence.
It really forces you to ask what your own non-negotiables are. You know, if you had to strip your life down to fit on a canal boat, what are your non-negotiables? Is it coffee and wine or something else entirely?
It's a tough question when you really sit with it.
Because when the physical space of your life inevitably shrinks, whether you move to a smaller home or simply find your energy levels dropping as you age, what makes the cut? When the noise falls away, do you desperately cling to the Doc Martens of your youth, Or do you just accept the creaky knees and make sure you have enough coffee to get through the day?
The transcript leaves us with so much to process regarding how we construct our lives and our identities over time.
It really does. We have covered a massive amount of psychological ground from a very brief snippet of everyday banter.
We really unpacked a lot here.
We started with the jarring system crash of a 35-year high school reunion, exploring the neuroscience of why our internal avatar freezes at age 25.
We debated the defensive utility of 90s vintage clothing as literal armor against chronological time.
Yes, and we confronted the grim, auditory reality of bubble wrap spines and the imposter syndrome of adulthood.
We stripped away the Instagram filter from alternative living to expose the manual labor, the urban intrusion of shopping trolleys, and the territorial displacement of fighting with swans.
And finally, we saw how extreme life experience, raising 6 kids and managing prisons, forges a person capable of distilling human survival down to just coffee, wine, and a partner they only want to trade in. Quote, mostly.
For a closing thought, Mandy's final sign-off in the text provides a perfect summary. She says, "Age is just a number, unless it's your back telling you otherwise."
It's so true.
It beautifully encapsulates the inescapable dual nature of human existence that we've been unpacking today. Our boundless minds trapped in finite vessels.
You know, I'm not sure I entirely agree. It's just a dual nature, though.
No.
No, it feels more like an active hostage situation.
Right.
We possess these infinite, timeless minds that genuinely believe they are still 25, minds that are still waiting to figure out the secret to adulthood.
Right.
But those minds are permanently trapped inside aggressively finite, decaying vessels that demand constant maintenance and sound like crushing plastics when they move. The tension of a human life is entirely located in the friction between those two realities.
Well, that friction is universal. We are all negotiating the terms of that hostage situation every single day.
We really are. And looking at Mandy and Raymond, the ultimate takeaway isn't that we eventually figure it all out or that we achieve some enlightened state of maturity.
No, definitely not.
It's that we just accumulate a denser, more complex history of chaotic stories. We trade the existential angst of our 20s for the hyper-specific, localized drama of fighting water birds and misplacing eyewear in our 50s.
That's oddly comforting, actually.
Right. So I want to leave you, the listener, with a provocation based on everything we've explored today. If a ghost from your past walked up to you right now and held a mirror up to your timeline, forcing your system to update, what specific era is your internal software stubbornly refusing to leave?
That's a great question to ponder.
And more importantly, when you look around at the cramped, complex reality you've built for yourself, who is the specific source of chaos that you secretly wouldn't trade for anything? Who is the Raymond bringing chaos into your daily life?
Something to mull over.
Definitely. Keep an eye on your own internal operating system, watch out for the low bridges in your life, and keep questioning the information around you. We will catch you on the next deep dive.